Dricus du Plessis versus Jiri Prochazka. I don't know if I should be really making a video about this because who knows? It's just speculation at this point, but allegedly it's in the works. What the fuck is this, bro? Who the fuck? Who came up with this? If Jiri Prochazka was announced to be moving down to middleweight because he's a guy that doesn't cut a lot of weight and he's probably not going to sniff a belt at light heavyweight ever again because he's had 4 title shots, 3 of them he's fumbled. If it was announced that he was moving down, because he's not a big light heavyweight, he's fought a lot of the guys in the top 5 and lost to some of them. If it was announced that Jiri was moving down, this would make a lot more sense, right? This would make a lot more sense. It'd be a bit weird for Dricus to be the guy welcoming all these new up-and-comers to the middleweight division. He's welcoming Usman moving up. He's welcoming Jiri moving down. It would be a bit strange, but it would make sense. Allegedly, from the sources that I'm seeing, this fight is supposed to occur at light heavyweight. So Dricus is moving up and he's making a light heavyweight title run. That's what it implies, because he's not going to move up to light heavyweight and then just move back down. That's like a meaningless move. It really is quite strange to see. I think this is fucking bullshit. I think it's going to get debunked pretty soon, because we saw Jiri versus Hamza rumors and that never ended up occurring. I think it's bullshit, but I thought I'd just make a cheeky little video breaking it down. If it does happen, that's an interesting fight. That's a compelling fight. 2 goofy guys. I like both guys. Dricus, bit of a love-hate relationship with Dricus. He subbed my boy Izzy. I don't really like watching him fight as much as he is good, and he's quick and he's fast and he's got good striking and he's a decent kickboxer and he's got good wrestling. He's well-rounded. You could argue he's the 3rd greatest middleweight of all time. It's between him and Sean and maybe Rob, but he's beaten both of those guys. So maybe there isn't a debate. I think he could be the 3rd greatest middleweight of all time. And, he's got a win over the 2nd greatest, in my opinion, Israel Adesanya. So he is very good, but I just don't there's a difference between goofy and he's just a brute, in my opinion. He's just a brute. And the way he fights, winging overhands, the way he doesn't turn over his punches. It's just not aesthetically pleasing to watch, in my opinion. That's just me, personally. Jiri, there's some art and there's some motion and there's a method to the madness a little bit. And there is for Dricus too, but I just don't see the vision as much when I'm watching a Dricus fight. I don't get as fired up for a Dricus fight as I do for other guys that have similar crazy unorthodox styles like Jiri Prochazka. So I don't really like Dricus du Plessis that much. That's not a secret. But, I love Jiri. And if I do see the 2 fight, I'm obviously going to be rooting for my boy Jiri. I think Dricus might take it. I can't lie. I think Dricus might take it. Jiri's been chinned a lot recently. Dricus hits like a fucking truck. And he can wrestle. He can wrestle. He can mix it up. If we do see those 2 fights, it's going to be Goofy Man versus Goofy Man. 2 levels of autism facing off in the octagon. And it's going to be interesting to see who takes it. But I'm leaning Dricus early. If it does end up occurring, which I really just don't think it will, it's just a fight that makes no sense. Why would Dricus move up? He's in title contention. In that post-fight speech that he gave after he beat my boy Kamaru Usman, he's beaten up on all these African legends. After he beat my boy Kamaru Usman, he called out Hamza. I think he called out Brendan Allen on Twitter maybe. He called out Nasruddin Imavov, I believe. I'm not too sure. I can't really remember. But he called out some guys, and he looks to be wanting to stay at middleweight. So that's part of the reason why I just don't think this fight's going to happen. But maybe the UFC sees something that we don't, and maybe they want to propel him to a 205 title shot, because Lord knows the 205 division needs it, with Carlos Ulberg as champ and Magomed Ankalaev as the number 1 contender. At least now we got Navajo Sterling, but we're never going to see Navajo Sterling fight his teammate, Carlos Ulberg. So he's going to be fighting contenders for a bit, sitting in the corner jacking off as he watches Carlos Ulberg be champ. And Paulo Costa's there, Robert Whittaker's there. We could see a massive influx of these middleweights moving up. And you know how it is, man. Lighter man skill does these guys wonders. It really does. We didn't see it with Usman, but if he was a bit younger, I think I think that's a winnable fight. On paper, 5 years ago, Anthony Smith maxing, that's a winnable fight for old Usman. And lighter man skill is a real thing. Dricus can move up and show levels to this game. I see Jiri training. He's rubbing stinging nettles on him. He's hitting the bag all unorthodox. He's back in the woods, you know what I mean? Balancing a fucking balancing a wasp on his erect penis as he tries to fucking meditate and close his left eye and clench his right butt cheek. You know, he's doing all this weird shit, and it's like, move to a real gym like American Top Team and work on your head movement and work on being kind of an orthodox fighter and not getting hit as much, instead of doing all this weird shit in the woods that he, you know, seems to have gotten from an anime edit that he saw when he was taking a shit or something somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, Jiri Prochazka needs to lock in, but I just think he's too far gone. And, you know, that's part of what makes him likable, but he needs to go to a proper gym. He needs to go to a proper gym and kind of tame this goofiness. I've seen that with Dricus, you know. Dricus has kind of made these improvements, and Jiri can do the same. You know, when we saw him against Jamal Hill, you know, there were significant improvements, and then he regressed a little bit against Khalil Roundtree, but he got the knockout, and then I think he kind of just relied on his chin too much. And then he just autism maxed his way to a fucking loss against Carlos Ulberg when that was exceptionally winnable for him. All he had to do was circle around on the back foot, but he couldn't do it. He needs to go to a gym, like a legit gym, and train with legit light heavyweights, and improve his fight IQ. He really does, because he can still be champ. He's young in this game. He really is. And, you know, if we see him versus Dricus, I don't like that matchup for him, but if he locks in, I think he can do well. I think he can do really well. But that's just my little breakdown. If it does get officially announced, I'll give like a proper in-depth reaction and breakdown of this fight. I just don't think it is, but it's cool to talk about. It's fun to think about. You know, Jiri against anyone, even if you put him in there against Hamza, he's going to make it interesting. Somehow, some way, he's going to pull something out of his pocket and do something crazy and make the fight cool and, you know, bring intrigue to any kind of matchup. So we'll see what happens. But in my opinion, it's not going to work out. I think Dricus is going to end up fighting Brendan Allen or maybe Nasruddin Imavov, seeing as though they're probably not going to give him a title shot. And it's looking like they're going to give Hamzat the rematch against Sean, as much as that's an undeserved fight. I think you should do Dricus versus Brendan Allen or Imavov. And I think you should do Jiri versus Navajo Sterling or Paulo Costa or Khalil Roundtree in the rematch. Obviously, I don't really want to see Khalil Roundtree get knocked out, you know, again. I don't want to see Jiri get knocked out. You know, those guys are two of my favorite fighters in the light heavyweight division. So I'd rather not see that. But if it makes sense, it makes sense. If the other guys are booked up or injured, we'll see what happens. But I think Jiri and Navajo is an interesting one. Navajo probably chin him, to be honest with you. Navajo, in my opinion, is a better version of Carlos Ulberg. So we'll see what happens. But there's a lot of interesting, cool fights for Jiri Prochazka in the light heavyweight division. Or in the middleweight division, if he decides to go down and test his skills at 185, I think he can make a bit of a run for it. But let me know what you guys think about this fight in the comments below. Let me know if you actually think this is going to happen. Maybe I'm being a bit skeptical. Maybe I'm being a bit cynical here in saying that it's not going to transpire. I just don't see it personally. But we'll see what happens. Like and subscribe. See you boys in the next one. Much love. Thanks for checking out the content. Goodbye.